What would you do if your one-night mistake unraveled your entire life before sunrise? Can a single confession at midnight really destroy everything you thought was secure? I stared at the digital clock on my nightstand, 12:47 a.m. Jonas lay beside me, his breathing steady and even, but I knew he wasn't sleeping. The weight of my secret had been crushing me for 3 weeks now, ever since that conference in downtown Chicago, ever since Luke. "Jonas," I whispered into the darkness of our master bedroom, "I need to tell you something." He didn't move, didn't acknowledge me at first. Then slowly, deliberately, he sat up and reached for the bedside lamp. The warm yellow light illuminated his face, calm, patient, waiting. "That's Jonas for you." 36 years old, an airline gate agent who dealt with crisis situations daily. Always composed, always thinking 3 steps ahead. "What is it, Erytheia?" His voice was neutral, professional almost. The same tone he used with difficult passengers. My heart hammered against my ribs. "I made a mistake. At the non-profit conference last month, The words stuck in my throat like broken glass. "I slept with someone." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Jonas didn't gasp, didn't shout, didn't even blink. He just stared at me with those dark brown eyes, processing the information the way he processed flight delays and gate changes. "Who?" he asked finally. "Luke Carmichael. He's a bartender at the hotel. It was just one night, Jonas. One stupid, meaningless night. I was drunk. I was feeling neglected. And you've been so distant lately with all your overtime shifts." "Stop." His voice cut through my rambling explanation like a blade. "Just stop." He swung his legs over the side of the bed and stood up slowly. For a moment, I thought he might hit something, throw something, scream at me. Instead, he walked to our dresser and pulled out a clean t-shirt and pajama pants. "Where are you going?" I asked, panic creeping into my voice. Jonas turned to look at me, and something in his expression made my blood freeze. It wasn't anger. It wasn't hurt. It was something far worse. Complete detachment. "Divorce," he said simply. That one word hit me like a physical blow. "Jonas, wait. We can work through this. It was just one night. I'm telling you because I want to be honest, because I want to fix us." But he was already walking toward the door, his clothes bundled under his arm. "Jonas, please. Don't you want to talk about this? Don't you want to fight for our marriage?" He paused in the doorway without turning around. "There's nothing to fight for anymore." The door clicked shut behind him, and I heard his footsteps padding down the hallway toward the guest room. I sat there in our bed, my bed now, apparently, staring at the closed door in disbelief. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I'd expected tears, accusations, maybe even some self-reflection on his part about how his emotional distance had driven me to seek comfort elsewhere. I'd expected drama, reconciliation, a chance to rebuild. I hadn't expected this cold, surgical amputation of our 12-year marriage. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand and texted my best friend Sophie. Told Jonas about the conference. He said divorce and walked out. "Call me tomorrow." Then I lay back against the pillows and tried to process what had just happened. Jonas was overreacting, obviously. People made mistakes. Marriages survived infidelity all the time. He just needed time to cool off, to realize that throwing away 12 years over one night was insane. But as I stared at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the image of his face in that doorway. The complete absence of emotion, like he'd already moved on. Around 2 a.m., I heard sounds from downstairs. The soft click of laptop keys, the whisper of papers being shuffled. I crept to the top of the stairs and peered down into the living room. Jonas sat at our small dining table, his work laptop open, surrounded by what looked like bank statements and bills. Even from my hiding spot, I could see the glow of a spreadsheet on his screen. He was typing steadily, methodically, stopping occasionally to check something on his phone or flip through a stack of papers. What was he doing? It had been less than 2 hours since my confession, and he was already... What? Planning our divorce? That seemed impossible. even for someone as organized as Jonas. I watched him for another 10 minutes, noting how he'd separate documents into different piles, how he'd photograph certain papers with his phone, how he'd type notes into his laptop with the focused intensity he usually reserved for managing delayed flights and angry passengers. The man I'd been married to for 12 years was dismantling our life with the same calm efficiency he used to rebook stranded travelers. A chill ran down my spine as I realized something. Jonas wasn't acting like a betrayed husband. He was acting like a professional handling a complex logistical problem. And somehow, that terrified me more than any amount of screaming would have. I woke up the next morning to an empty house. Jonas had already left for his early shift at O'Hare, and our 7-year-old daughter, Rhea, was still asleep. The silence felt oppressive, loaded with unspoken tension. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Sophie and a text. "Girl, what happened? Call me ASAP." But first, I needed coffee and a chance to think. Maybe Jonas's reaction last night was just shock. Maybe he'd come home tonight, ready to have a real conversation about our marriage, about how we'd grown apart, about how we could fix things. I was halfway through my second cup when I noticed something odd. My laptop, which I'd left on the kitchen counter, was closed. I always left it open, hibernating. Always. I opened it and tried to log into my email. Password incorrect. I tried again, thinking I'd mistyped. Password incorrect. My heart started racing. I tried my online banking. Password incorrect. Social media. Password incorrect. "What the hell?" I muttered, grabbing my phone to call Jonas. The call went straight to voicemail. Of course it did. He was probably dealing with the morning rush of passengers. But the knot in my stomach tightened. I spent the next hour trying to reset passwords, but every recovery email was being sent to accounts I could no longer access. It was like Jonas had systematically locked me out of my own digital life. When Sophie finally called at 9 a.m., I was in full panic mode. "Eerie, honey, what's going on? Your text last night scared me." "Sophie, I think Jonas is losing his mind. I told him about Luke, and instead of talking about it like adults, he's completely shut down. He changed all my passwords overnight. Who does that?" "Wait, back up. You told him about the bartender from Chicago?" "Yes, and... Oh, sweetie, why would you do that? I thought we agreed that what happened at the conference stayed at the conference." I felt a flash of irritation. Because I felt guilty, Sophie. Because I thought honesty was the best policy. Because I thought my husband of 12 years deserved the truth. And now he wants a divorce? He says he does, but he's not thinking clearly. He's being controlling and manipulative. Changing my passwords. That's abusive behavior, Sophie. There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Eri, are you sure that's what happened? Maybe there was some kind of security breach or... No, this was deliberate. He's trying to punish me, to make me feel helpless. But two can play that game." After I hung up with Sophie, I called my mother-in-law, Marjorie. If anyone could talk sense into Jonas, it would be his mother. "Erytheia, dear, how are you?" Marjorie's voice was warm but cautious. "I'm worried about Jonas, Marjorie. He's not acting like himself. We had a disagreement last night, and now he's being vindictive and controlling. I think he might be having some kind of breakdown." "A disagreement? What kind of disagreement?" I chose my words carefully. "Marriage stuff. You know how it is. But instead of talking it through, he's shutting me out completely. It's not healthy." "Oh, dear. That doesn't sound like Jonas at all. He's always been so level-headed." "Exactly. That's why I'm concerned. This behavior is completely out of character. Maybe you could call him. Help him see that he's overreacting." Marjorie promised she would, and I felt a small surge of satisfaction. Jonas might be able to shut me out, but he couldn't ignore his mother. The rest of the day passed in a haze of anxiety and frustration. I tried calling Jonas several more times, but every call went to voicemail. I even drove by the airport during my lunch break, thinking I might catch him during a break, but security wouldn't let me through to the gates without a boarding pass. When Ria came home from school, she immediately sensed something was wrong. "Where's Daddy?" she asked, dropping her backpack by the front door. "He's working late tonight, sweetheart. It's just us for dinner." But Ria wasn't easily fooled. She'd inherited her father's observational skills. "Why are your eyes all red? Are you sick?" "Just allergies, baby. Nothing to worry about." Jonas didn't come home until after 10 p.m. I heard his key in the lock and rushed to meet him in the foyer, ready to have the conversation we should have had the night before. "Jonas, thank God you're home. We need to talk about—" He held up a hand to stop me. "I've opened a separate bank account. The statements will be mailed to my mother's house. I've also contacted our mortgage company and car loan providers to remove your authorization to make changes to the accounts." I stared at him in disbelief. "What are you talking about? You can't just—" "I can, and I have. I've also scheduled appointments with 3 different divorce attorneys for this week. I'll let you know which one I choose, so you can find your own representation." "Jonas, stop. You're scaring me. This isn't you. We can work through this if you just calm down and—" "I am calm," he said. And that was the most terrifying part. He was calm. Completely, unnaturally calm. "I'm also done with this marriage." He started walking toward the stairs, but I grabbed his arm. "What about Ria? What about our daughter? You're going to destroy her family over one mistake." For just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe, but it was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. "Ria will be fine. Children are resilient. Jonas, please, I love you. I made a terrible mistake, but I love you. Doesn't that count for anything?" He looked at me for a long moment, and I thought maybe I'd finally reached him. Then, he gently removed my hand from his arm. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have fucked a stranger in a hotel room." The words hit me like a slap. Jonas never swore. Ever. In 12 years of marriage, I'd heard him use strong language maybe 3 times and never directed at me. He climbed the stairs without another word, leaving me standing in the foyer with tears streaming down my face. Later that night, unable to sleep, I crept downstairs again. Jonas was back at the dining table with his laptop and papers, but this time I could see more clearly what he was working on. Spreadsheets. Multiple spreadsheets with dates, times, locations. I could make out column headers: date, location, time, transaction amount, notes. He had my credit card statements spread out beside him, and he was highlighting charges with different colored pens. Hotel charges in yellow, rideshare receipts in green, restaurant bills in blue. As I watched, he pulled up what looked like our rideshare app and began screenshotting individual trip records. Then, he opened another app, our mobile banking, and began taking screenshots of specific transactions. He was building a timeline, a detailed, minute-by-minute timeline of my activities during the Chicago conference. My blood ran cold as I realized what I was witnessing. This wasn't the emotional reaction of a betrayed husband. This was the methodical documentation of someone building a legal case. Jonas wasn't having a breakdown. He was preparing for war. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I couldn't face my colleagues at the non-profit with everything falling apart at home. Instead, I spent the morning on the phone with Sophie, trying to make sense of Jonas's behavior. "He's documenting everything, Soph. Like he's building some kind of case against me. It's honestly scary." "Maybe you should talk to a lawyer too," Sophie suggested. "If he's being this aggressive, you need to protect yourself." "I don't want lawyers. I want my husband back. I want to fix this." But even as I said the words, doubt crept in. The man who had systematically locked me out of our financial accounts overnight wasn't the same man I'd married 12 years ago. Around noon, Sophie called back with panic in her voice. "Eri, we have a problem. Jonas called me this morning." My stomach dropped. "What did he say?" "He asked me to verify the dates of our girls' trip to Milwaukee last month. The one where you said you were with me and Jennifer and Kate. The girls' trip that had been my cover story for the Chicago conference. The alibi Sophie had helped me construct when I came home with guilt written all over my face. What did you tell him? I panicked. I didn't know what to say. He was so calm and polite, asking specific questions about where we stayed, what we did. I tried to stick to our story, but he had dates and times. He knew things. What kind of things? He knew you'd used your credit card at a hotel downtown on Friday night. He knew you'd taken 3 rideshare trips that weekend. He asked me to explain why your phone showed you were in downtown Chicago when you were supposed to be in Milwaukee with me. I felt the walls closing in. What did you say? I told him I must be confused about the dates, that maybe we'd planned the Milwaukee trip but it fell through. But I think he knows I was lying. After Sophie hung up, I immediately called Jennifer and Kate, the other 2 friends who were supposed to have been on our fictional Milwaukee trip. Both calls went to voicemail. An hour later, Jennifer called back. Erytheia, what the hell is going on? Your husband just called asking about some trip to Milwaukee that never happened. Jen, I can explain. No, you can't. Because there's no explanation for why you'd lie to your husband and drag me into it. I told him the truth, that we never planned any trip to Milwaukee, and I haven't seen you outside of work functions in months. Jennifer, please. Don't call me again, Erytheia. I don't want any part of whatever this is. Kate's response was even worse. She didn't call back at all, but she did send a text. Jonas seems like a good man. You should have thought about that before you cheated on him. Don't contact me again. By evening, I was desperate. Jonas still wasn't speaking to me beyond logistical necessities, and my friend circle was crumbling. I needed allies, people who would support me through this crisis. That's when I remembered the church social on Sunday. Our congregation was small and tight-knit, and I'd been active in several committees over the years. If I could get ahead of whatever narrative Jonas was building, maybe I could salvage some support. Sunday morning, I dressed carefully and made sure to arrive at church early. I positioned myself near the coffee station, where I'd have maximum opportunity to chat with other parishioners. Erytheia, how are you doing, dear? Asked Mrs. Patterson, one of the older ladies who ran the hospitality committee. Oh, you know how it is. Marriage is hard work. Jonas and I are going through a rough patch right now. I'm sorry to hear that. Is there anything we can do to help? This was my opening. Honestly, I'm a little worried about him. He's been acting very controlling lately, changing passwords, monitoring my activities, that sort of thing. I think the stress of his job might be getting to him. Mrs. Patterson's eyes widened with concern. That doesn't sound like the Jonas I know. I know, right? That's what makes it so scary. It's like he's become a different person overnight. I'm starting to wonder if he might need professional help. I had similar conversations with 3 other church members, carefully planting seeds of doubt about Jonas's mental state and hinting at controlling behavior. By the time the service started, I felt like I'd successfully begun to shift the narrative in my favor. But during the service, I noticed Jonas sitting in his usual pew, calm and composed as always. He participated in the hymns, listened attentively to the sermon, and chatted pleasantly with neighbors during the peace greeting. He looked nothing like the unstable, controlling husband I'd been describing. After the service, during the social hour, I watched as Jonas moved through the crowd with his typical quiet confidence. He shook hands, asked about people's families, listened with genuine interest to their stories. Then I saw him talking to Mrs. Patterson. My blood chilled as I watched her expression change from sympathetic concern to confusion to something that looked almost like disapproval. She glanced in my direction, then back at Jonas, nodding slowly at whatever he was telling her. I tried to get close enough to hear their conversation, but every time I approached, they seemed to naturally drift away, or other people would join their group. By the time the social hour ended, I felt like the entire congregation was looking at me differently. Conversations seemed to stop when I approached. Smiles seemed forced. People who usually lingered to chat made excuses to leave quickly. As we walked to our cars, I confronted Jonas. What did you say to Mrs. Patterson? I told her the truth. Which is what exactly? Jonas stopped walking and turned to face me. That my wife of 12 years had an affair, lied about it for weeks, and is now spreading rumors about my mental health to cover up her own infidelity. I felt my face burn with embarrassment and anger. You had no right to... I had every right. You want to play games with people's perceptions? Fine, but I won't let you destroy my reputation to salvage yours. He got in his car and drove away, leaving me standing in the church parking lot with the horrifying realization that my strategy had backfired completely. Monday morning brought a new crisis. My supervisor at the non-profit, David, called me into his office first thing. Erytheia, we need to talk. I received some concerning information over the weekend. My heart sank. What kind of information? David opened a manila folder on his desk. Someone sent an anonymous packet to our board of directors. It contains allegations about your conduct during the Chicago conference last month. I tried to keep my voice steady. What kind of allegations? The packet suggests that you misrepresented your activities during the conference, potentially violating our organization's code of conduct regarding professional behavior and donor trust. The room seemed to spin. David, I can explain. The packet includes documentation, credit card receipts, hotel records, timeline discrepancies. Whoever sent this was very thorough. I knew without asking who had sent it. Jonas, with his methodical documentation and his access to all our financial records, had turned my professional life into another battlefield. What happens now? I asked weakly. The board is meeting tomorrow to discuss the situation. You'll be placed on administrative leave pending their decision. As I cleaned out my desk that afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from Sophie. Eri, we need to talk. Something happened. I called her immediately. Jonas contacted Jennifer and Kate again, Sophie said, without preamble. But this time, he asked them to forward any text messages or group chats from the weekend of the conference. My blood turned to ice. The group chat. The one where Sophie and I had coordinated our cover story. Where I'd asked her to back up my Milwaukee trip alibi. Where I'd joked about my conference hookup and sworn everyone to secrecy. Sophie, tell me you didn't... I'm sorry, Eri. I'm so sorry. But he was so calm and polite, and he explained that he just wanted to understand what happened. He said he wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He just needed the truth for his own peace of mind. So you forwarded him our private conversations? I forwarded him the group chat from that weekend. All of it. I hung up the phone and sat in my car in the non-profit's parking lot, surrounded by boxes of my personal belongings, and finally understood the full scope of what Jonas was doing. He wasn't just documenting my affair. He was systematically dismantling every lie I'd told, every person I'd involved in my deception, every aspect of the false narrative I'd constructed. And he was doing it with the same calm, methodical precision he used to manage airline passengers during weather delays. I was beginning to realize that I'd severely underestimated my husband. Tuesday morning brought the sound I'd been dreading, Jonas moving around the house at 5 a.m., but not getting ready for work. Instead, I heard him making phone calls from the kitchen, his voice low and professional. I crept to the top of the stairs to listen. Yes, I'd like to schedule a consultation for this afternoon if possible. Jonas Vale. Yes, it's regarding a divorce proceeding. No, ma'am, there won't be any contested custody issues if the documentation is clear. My hands trembled as I gripped the banister. He was actually doing it, actually moving forward with divorce proceedings. When I came downstairs an hour later, Jonas was gone, but he'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Meeting with attorney at 2 p.m. Ria has soccer practice until 5. Pick her up. The casual tone made it worse somehow. Like scheduling our divorce was just another item on his to-do list, right between grocery shopping and soccer pickup. I spent the morning in a panic, calling every divorce attorney in our area. The first 3 were booked solid for weeks. The 4th could see me Thursday morning. The 5th had an opening that afternoon. Mrs. Vale, I'm Patricia Rodriguez. Please, have a seat. Patricia Rodriguez looked to be in her 50s, with sharp eyes and an expensive suit. Her office walls were lined with family law certificates and what looked like successful case outcomes. I understand you're looking at divorce proceedings. My husband is, yes. I'm hoping we can work things out, but he seems determined to move forward. I need to understand my rights. Tell me about your situation. I gave her the condensed version. A one-night mistake, an overly dramatic husband, controlling behavior, reputation damage. I framed myself as the victim of Jonas's vindictive overreaction. Patricia listened without interruption, taking occasional notes. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. Mrs. Vale, you mentioned your husband has been documenting your activities. What kind of documentation? Financial records, mostly. Credit card statements, bank records. He's built some kind of timeline of my movements during a business conference. And this conference was when your encounter took place? I nodded. Did you lie to your husband about your whereabouts during this conference? I may have been vague about some details. Did you create a false alibi involving friends? My stomach sank. How did you... Mrs. Vale, I've been practicing family law for 25 years. I can spot a problematic case from across the room. Did you involve friends in creating a false alibi? It wasn't supposed to be a big deal. I just didn't want to hurt him unnecessarily. Patricia set down her pen. Mrs. Vale, let me be very direct with you. If your husband has documented evidence of adultery, financial deception, and conspiracy with friends to create false alibis, you're not looking at a standard divorce proceeding. You're looking at a case where you have very little leverage. But what about his controlling behavior? The password changes, the financial manipulation? Securing marital assets and protecting oneself legally after discovering adultery isn't controlling behavior, Mrs. Vale. It's smart legal strategy. I left Patricia's office feeling worse than when I'd arrived. Her blunt assessment had shattered my last illusions about controlling the narrative of our divorce. When I got home, Jonas was in the kitchen making dinner for Ria. He looked up when I entered but didn't speak. How was your meeting? I asked, trying to sound casual. Productive. Jonas, we need to talk about this. About us. About our daughter. He continued stirring pasta sauce. My attorney advised me not to discuss the case with you directly. All communication should go through legal counsel. Legal counsel? Jonas, we're married. We're supposed to be able to talk to each other. We were married, he corrected quietly. Past tense. That night I couldn't sleep. Around midnight I heard Jonas's laptop keyboard clicking again from downstairs. This time, I decided to confront him directly. I found him at the dining table, but his setup had expanded. He now had 3 manila folders, each labeled with different categories: financial, timeline, and communications. What is all this? I demanded. Jonas looked up calmly. Evidence. Evidence of what? He opened the timeline folder and spread out several sheets of paper. I could see printed credit card statements with highlighted charges, rideshare receipts with GPS coordinates, and what looked like hotel records. Evidence that on Friday, November 15th, you took a rideshare from our house to downtown Chicago at 6:47 p.m. Evidence that you checked into the Marriott downtown at 7:23 p.m. using our joint credit card. Evidence that you purchased drinks at the hotel bar totaling $67 between 8:15 and 10:30 p.m. My mouth went dry. How did you get hotel records? I called them, explained that there were charges on our credit card that my wife couldn't remember, and asked them to verify the transactions. They were very helpful. He opened the communications folder and pulled out printed screenshots of text messages. Evidence that you coordinated with Sophie Bell to create a false alibi about a trip to Milwaukee. Evidence that you joked in a group chat about your conference hookup and swore your friends to secrecy. You can't use private text messages. Actually, I can. Sophie forwarded them voluntarily, when I explained that I was trying to understand what had happened to my marriage. He opened the third folder, labeled Financial. Evidence that you spent $347 on ride shares that weekend. Evidence that you purchased a bottle of champagne for $89 that was delivered to room 1247, a room that wasn't registered in your name. I stared at the papers spread across our dining table. Months of my life reduced to highlighted receipts and printed screenshots. Jonas, this is insane. You're treating our marriage like a criminal investigation. No, he said quietly. I'm treating our divorce like a legal proceeding, because that's what it is now. He gathered the papers back into their folders with the same methodical care he used for everything else. My attorney says we have enough documentation to file for divorce on grounds of adultery. He also says that given the evidence of financial deception and false statements, a judge would likely award me primary custody of Rhea. The words hit me like a physical blow. You can't take my daughter away from me. I'm not taking her away. I'm protecting her from the chaos you've created. Jonas, please. I made one mistake. One night. Are you really going to destroy our family over one night? He stood up, folders in hand, and looked at me with something that might have been pity. You destroyed our family the night you got into bed with Luke Carmichael. I'm just documenting the aftermath. As he walked toward the stairs, I called after him desperately. What about Luke? Shouldn't you be angry at him too? Shouldn't he face some consequences? Jonas paused at the bottom of the stairs. Oh, Luke's facing consequences. I contacted him yesterday. You what? I called the hotel, got his information, and had a very interesting conversation with him. Turns out Luke is married too, and his wife was very interested to learn about his extracurricular activities. My blood ran cold. Jonas, you didn't... I also explained to Luke that he might be called as a witness in our divorce proceedings. He was very eager to cooperate, even provided a written statement confirming the timeline of events. He started up the stairs, then paused again. Luke sends his apologies, by the way. He says he had no idea you were married. Apparently, you told him you were recently divorced and looking for a fresh start. The final piece of my carefully constructed lies crumbled around me. Even Luke, my partner in this disaster, had abandoned me to save himself. I stood alone in our dining room, surrounded by the remnants of the life I'd systematically destroyed, and finally understood that Jonas wasn't overreacting. He was simply responding to my betrayal with the same methodical precision he brought to everything else in his life, and I was completely, utterly outmatched. Thursday morning arrived with a knock at the door that would change everything. I was still in my pajamas, having barely slept, when the doorbell rang at 7:30 a.m. Through the peephole, I saw a woman in a business suit holding a thick envelope. Erytheia Vale? Yes? You've been served. The envelope felt impossibly heavy in my hands. Inside were official court documents, petition for dissolution of marriage, temporary restraining orders, emergency custody motions, and a dozen other legal papers I couldn't fully comprehend. But certain phrases jumped out at me like physical blows. Respondent's adultery and deceptive conduct. Temporary exclusive use of marital residence granted to petitioner. Supervised visitation, pending psychological evaluation. Immediate freezing of joint financial accounts. My hands shook as I read through page after page of legal language that systematically stripped away every aspect of my life. Jonas had been thorough, devastatingly thorough. By the time I finished reading, I understood that I had 20 days to respond, that I was being evicted from my own home, that I could only see my daughter under court supervision, and that I had no access to our bank accounts. I called Patricia Rodriguez immediately. Mrs. Vale, I've been expecting your call. I assume you've been served. Patricia, this is insane. He's taking everything. The house, our daughter, our money. Can he do this? Let me ask you something, Mrs. Vale. When we met on Tuesday, did you tell me the complete truth about your situation? My stomach dropped. What do you mean? I mean, Did you mention that you'd lied to your husband about your whereabouts for an entire weekend? Did you mention that you'd involved multiple friends in creating false alibis? Did you mention that you'd been spreading rumors about your husband's mental health at your church? Silence stretched between us. Mrs. Vale, I've now seen your husband's filing. The level of documentation is extraordinary. Credit card records, GPS tracking from rideshare apps, hotel keycard logs, text message screenshots, witness statements from your friends, even a sworn affidavit from your affair partner. How did he get keycard logs? Subpoena, your husband's attorney is very good, and they've built an airtight case. The temporary orders you received are standard in cases involving adultery and financial deception. But supervised visitation, I'm not a danger to my own daughter. Mrs. Vale, you lied systematically for weeks, involved multiple people in deception, and attempted to manipulate your community's perception of your husband. A judge looks at that pattern of behavior and wonders what else you might be capable of. After hanging up with Patricia, I sat in my kitchen, soon to be Jonas's kitchen, and tried to process the magnitude of what was happening. Jonas had turned our divorce into a military operation, every move calculated, every piece of evidence catalogued, every potential weakness in my position exploited. The man I'd been married to for 12 years had become a stranger. That afternoon, Jonas came home early from work. He walked through the house methodically, room by room, taking photographs of everything. When he reached our bedroom, he began packing my clothes into suitcases. What are you doing? The temporary order gives me exclusive use of the house. You have until Sunday to remove your personal belongings. Jonas, please, where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. His coldness was breathtaking. This was the man who used to bring me coffee in bed every Sunday morning, the man who'd held my hand during my father's funeral, the man who'd cried when Rhea took her first steps. What about Rhea? How are you going to explain this to her? I'll tell her the truth, that Mommy made some bad choices and needs to live somewhere else for a while. You can't poison her against me. I won't have to. Your actions speak for themselves. That evening, Rhea came home from school to find me packing. Her 7-year-old mind couldn't fully grasp what was happening, but she knew something was terribly wrong. Mommy, why are you putting your clothes in suitcases? Are we going on a trip? I knelt down to her level, fighting back tears. Mommy has to go stay somewhere else for a little while, sweetheart, but I'll see you very soon. Why can't you stay here with me and Daddy? It's complicated, baby. Grown-up stuff. Did you do something bad? The innocence in her question broke my heart. Mommy made some mistakes, yes, but I love you more than anything in the world, and that will never change. Jonas appeared in the doorway. Rhea, go wash your hands for dinner. After she left, he turned to me with an expression I couldn't read. The supervised visitation starts Monday, 2 hours twice a week, at the Family Services Center downtown. 2 hours? Twice a week? She's my daughter, Jonas. She's our daughter, and right now, the court thinks I'm the more stable parent. This is temporary, right? Once things settle down. That depends entirely on you, Erytheia. How you handle the next few months will determine what kind of relationship you have with Rhea going forward. There was something in his tone that made me look at him more carefully. What do you mean? I mean that every interaction you have with me, with Rhea, with the court system, will be documented and evaluated. Every text message, every phone call, every violation of the temporary orders. You're threatening me. I'm informing you. There's a difference. That night, I stayed at a budget motel near the airport. The irony wasn't lost on me. I could hear planes taking off and landing all night, Jonas's workplace literally surrounding my exile. I tried calling him several times, desperate to find some crack in his armor, some remnant of the man I'd married. Every call went straight to voicemail. Finally, around midnight, I sent a series of text messages. Jonas, please call me. We need to talk about this. I know you're angry, but this is destroying our daughter. 12 years of marriage has to count for something. I love you. I know I messed up, but I love you. Please don't do this to our family. The responses came back immediately, but not from Jonas. Instead, I received automated messages from his attorney's office. This is an automated response. Jonas Vale is represented by counsel in all matters related to his divorce proceedings. Direct all communication to Blackstone and Associates. He'd even automated rejecting me. The next morning, I woke up to missed calls from Patricia Rodriguez. Mrs. Vale, we have a problem. Your text messages to your husband last night violated the no-contact provisions of the temporary order. What no-contact provisions? I'm allowed to communicate with him about our daughter. Only through the court-approved communication app, and only about logistics related to Ria's care. Personal pleas and declarations of love are explicitly prohibited. So what happens now? Your husband's attorney has filed a motion for contempt of court. If the judge agrees, you could face fines or even jail time. I hung up the phone and stared at the water-stained ceiling of my motel room. Jonas had anticipated even my desperate late-night messages and turned them into legal weapons against me. Every move I made seemed to tighten the noose he'd constructed around my life, and the most terrifying part was that he was doing it all within the bounds of the law, with the calm precision of a man who'd spent years managing crisis situations for a living. I was beginning to understand that Jonas wasn't just divorcing me. He was systematically dismantling my entire existence, one legal document at a time. The contempt hearing was scheduled for the following Friday, giving me exactly 1 week to watch my life completely unravel. Patricia Rodriguez had been blunt about my chances. Mrs. Vale, your husband's attorney has screenshots of 12 text messages sent after the no-contact order was issued. The timestamps show they were sent between 11:47 p.m. and 12:23 a.m., demonstrating a pattern of harassment. Harassment? I was trying to save my marriage. The court doesn't see it that way. The court sees a respondent who can't follow basic legal directives. That week felt like a slow-motion car crash. I'd moved from the motel to my mother's house, but even that refuge felt temporary and shameful. My mother, Karine, tried to be supportive, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. Erytheia, honey, I just don't understand how it got to this point. Mum, Jonas is being vindictive. He's using the legal system to punish me for one mistake. One mistake? Sweetheart, you lied to him for weeks. You involved Sophie and your other friends in covering for you. You spread rumors about him at church. Whose side are you on? I'm on the side of truth, and the truth is that you've made a series of very poor choices. Even my own mother was abandoning me. Supervised visits with Ria were heartbreaking. 2 hours, twice a week in a sterile room. Mommy, when are you coming home? Even these visits were monitored. The social worker warned me about making Ria feel caught in the middle. At the contempt hearing, Judge Morrison reviewed Jonas's evidence. Text messages, phone logs, GPS tracking, everything documented. What strikes me isn't the adultery, but the systematic deception that followed. Jonas's attorney offered settlement terms: $47,000 civil judgment, no disparagement clause, supervised visitation pending psychological evaluation, and parenting classes. Take the deal, Patricia whispered. This is as good as it gets. I looked at Jonas. He showed only calm professionalism. I'll take the settlement. 6 months later, I'd completed evaluations, found a lower-paying job, moved to a 1-bedroom apartment. Jonas was dating Michelle. Really nice and makes good pancakes. By 16, Ria chose to live with her father full-time. Dad's house feels more stable. I never remarried, couldn't explain my legal obligations to potential partners. Jonas never badmouthed me publicly. The legal record spoke for itself. I remained a cautionary tale, the woman who destroyed her marriage for one night, then lost everything trying to cover it up. Children are resilient. Adults who betray trust rarely recover completely.